Let me teach you how to be good with Rogue so you don't sell every single rank game. Just check out how clean this combo is on a 275 HP target. Rogue is an incredibly difficult but incredibly strong Vanguard. She has a ton of movement and a ton of annoying capabilities. She can pester enemies from the sky, she can brawl in the front line, she can CC for days, and she can siphon abilities and stats from enemies. In this guide, I'm going to talk about her abilities and break them down. Then I'm going to talk about tips on how to play her effectively, go into combos that you can use to devastate the backline, and then talk about her biggest counters and weaknesses. But for the short form videos, I'm going to skip the abilities part. Go to the long form if you want to check that out. Her standard punch combo is 1, 2, 3. You're going to be peppering swings all of the time because honestly, you don't have a ton of range besides on one ability, but we'll talk about that in a minute. On Rogue's right click is her block. This is a very short block and it just reduces damage. It does not negate damage. The nuance to this block is that if you take damage with it, you can actually return that damage back to an enemy. While holding this block, you can attack with that left click button or your attack button to do a launching punch that actually has some decent range to it. It reaches just outside of 10 meters. The more damage you take while using that block, the more you can return to an enemy. And if you're able to absorb a ton of damage while you're using that block and then turn it back towards an enemy, you can deal hundreds of damage. The best way to think of it is more of a counter than it is a block and then store that damage to punch later. Because if you don't use it pretty much instantly, that stored damage goes away. Next, we'll talk about Fatal Attraction or her dash. It is her left shift ability where she dashes in, and then if you press the ability again, you will have an AoE zone that deals tick damage to enemies, and then we'll pull them in a little bit over a second.
Don't be shy.
This is a great ability for team fights as it disrupts enemies, it forces them to miss some of their abilities, and makes them look at you and while you're just able to brawl them because they're on top of you. The dash is about 10 meters and the punch is about 5. So if you combine them together, you can traverse the map relatively easily. So it does give you some ways of getting out of dodge while still using those other cooldowns more effectively. Cooldown of about 17 seconds, and the cooldown doesn't start until the second part activates or until your ability window to activate the second part of the dash is done. So whenever possible, using your punch dash to escape is your best bet. The next ability to talk about is her chrono kick combo, and this has a lot of steps to it. First, you dash forward and you punt enemies into the sky. It then activates free flight for about 4 seconds. Once you've used this ability, your auto attack, so your left click now has 2 charges of a kick that has range, but you do have a window in which you need to use those kicks. You can actually use the flight and kick range combo to your advantage to try to find windows to open up damage sources so you can dive towards a backline. But if you activate the ability again while you're in the sky, you can dunk back down. This leads to a ton of different combos, which we'll talk about in our combo segment, but leads you to do a lot of different things to where you can make plays. Every time you land a kick on an enemy, it will give you overhealth. The more enemies that are hit with that kick, the better. Finally, we need to talk about Rogue's Siphon ability. When you press the F button, you will tackle an enemy and steal an ability from them, converting that F button to whatever ability you had stolen. Not only do you steal an ability, but you will also steal stats from the enemy. If they are a duelist, you will steal damage and make them do less damage while you do more. If they are a strategist, you will steal passive healing over time for yourself. And if they are Vanguard, you will steal HP, total HP. If the hero does not give you an ability, they will give you the stats that I had talked about, but they will also refresh your left shift cooldown, which is a 16-second cooldown. I have a video showcasing all the things that you can steal from enemies, but my favorites are Storm's damage boost, Loki crystals, Cloak and Dagger. You can steal the healing bubble and the terror cloak, depending on who you absorb. Mag bubble, Wolverine damage reduction, Wanda's stun, Thing's damage reduction, Emma's diamond form, Daredevil mark, Psylocke invis. There is a ton of really good abilities that you can take. There'll actually be an icon over the enemy's head of who actually gives you what ability, so you kind of know early on what to go for. If they do not have an ability, you refresh your cooldown and still get the stats. Stealing those stats, whether it's more HP or more damage or healing over time, can be super impactful in a fight, especially once you know what you're looking for. And then finally, you have Heartbreaker. During this ultimate, Rogue will deal a ton of AoE damage and consistently steal stats similar to her absorbing ability by everyone inside of that zone. But you will also steal ult charge from them if they are over 80%. If they're anywhere from 80 even to 100 where they have their ult, it will drain them very quickly so they cannot react. There is a lot of value into going up into the sky diving down onto the backline and ulting them before they can answer or react with strategist ultimates, pummel them without them having a response. This is potentially a huge counter for triple strategists in the backline, and I can't wait to see how this develops. All right, so now let's talk about tips with Rogue. The first thing I need to mention is that her siphon ability is everything. You siphon stats from enemies, and knowing who to siphon and the value of that throughout every team fight is super important. For example, I showed you the combo before of the damage dealing combo I like to do. But her one-shot combo gets a lot more effective if you have a DPS siphoned. The next tip I want to talk about is you can use your kick combo to pepper down a backline and then dive on them unsuspectingly. Go up into the sky, you pepper them, and then commit later on to find a pick. And you can even use that range as an escape mechanism where you go up into the air, find a pick, and then you use your dash out to find a way away from the fight after you've found value. There is so much you can do with this ability alone, but I typically lend to use this ability more offensively, and then again, use my punch out combo and my left shift more as a defensive escape tool. This E tool is just so good offensively.
Well, look who's up to no good.
The next tip is Rogue has really good chase embedded in her kit. When you're about 25 meters away, you can actually just standard left shift dash in and grab multiple people to initiate the punching combos or your kick. If you use all of her abilities in a row to chase towards a backline, you can fill well over 40-50 meters just to chase down a target and still have those kicks after just from using that E. The final tip before we get into counters is the only time Rogue is CC immune is when she's using Siphon. If you're about to be hit with some sort of CC, you see something coming, or Jeff ult's about to begin, stack near the enemy and get ready to Siphon and hold, because during that whole animation, you are completely CC immune. I like to put that ability on my back mouse button, so I have my front mouse button as my standard dash, and then my back mouse button as my siphon, followed up with whatever ability I get from then on. We're going to talk about combos without any damage boost, because honestly, if you have damage boost, you can just do less punches and it's way faster. I'm going to show these combos on 275 HP targets, because I feel like that is a good middle ground as to who you want to show for a one-shot combo. The combo looks a little bit like this. You're going to block punch to close the distance. Then you're going to hit a 1-2 punch combo, followed by your E upwards for one attack, E downwards, one attack. A little bit faster, it looks like this. The other thing to note is if they're dealing a lot of damage to you while you're using that block and you use your counter punch, you can skip a lot of those autos and instead go right into the E combo. It's way faster because you just dealt a ton of damage right back at them.
Well, wasn't that precious?
Next is something I like to call the sticky combo. Obviously, you're going to consistently be mailing as much as possible and using your dash punch to close the distance. But if you ever get close enough to a target that you just want to stay sticky on, what you can do, especially if they do not have an ability you can copy, is you can dash into them, use your pull, and then immediately siphon, because it gives you that dash back. And you can do it once more, and they cannot leave your zone. Now, finally, let's talk about her biggest weaknesses. I'm going to be honest, it is CC. The biggest problem that she will have is being CC'd into oblivion. Emma's likely her biggest counter in terms of Vanguard. You have Penny, which could be a problem as well. Wolverine is going to absolutely be a massive issue for her, especially with that new change to where he can ult into side walls, because I'm telling you, that is going to make him an insane threat. Bucky is going to be a big problem. In terms of strategists, I don't see too much of an issue because a lot of these strategists, you can copy a lot of their sustainability. So if they are using those to bide more time, you can just do it right back at them. So that is a great answer. But again, you know, that Wolverine, that Bucky, Emma, you know, even Angela, that kind of stuff is going to be a massive problem for you. You got to keep that in mind. So that's going to do it for my guide of Rogue. I'm live right now on TTV with new drops for the new season. Drop in and say what's up, and I'll see you in the next video. Any skins you're hoping they bring for? I'm not 100% sure what I want. Jungus, welcome in. I could see, I think Hulk might need something too, but... Like, that was beautiful. You know what I'm saying? Like, that whole combo situation was beautiful.